This liberating feeling of the act of opening a wall could, to some extent, be compared to the one of opening a door, a window, or anything else that suggests a threshold between two worlds meeting. This window piece I made last year also encapsulates that idea of opening, with an absurd and ironic twist of having a view onto a white wall instead of a beautiful landscape. Here, the wall also comes to life as the shadows of the mosaics seem to dance to the rhythm of the to and fro movement of opening and closing. The mosaics are made out of a series of handprints on glass. The simple gesture of the pressure of the artist's hand onto glass enables the creation of ambiguous shapes to appear. These organically formed shapes can remind us of cocoons or embryos, with the notion of birth attached. However, close-ups of those shapes will reveal very fine details, reminiscent of the delicacy of butterfly wings, as if these were dead butterflies kept behind glass by a dedicated collector. So do these shapes represent birth or death, the beginning or the end? In 1920, Marcel Duchamp executed Fresh Widow. The title, an obvious pun for French window, also refers to the word widow, which in French is veuve, the colloquial term for guillotine. In his book on the complete works by Marcel Duchamp, the art historian Arturo Schwarz states, I quote, "The castration symbolism of this item is clear if we recall that the French colloquial term for the guillotine is widow. Thus, the French window may be a metaphor for the vagina dentata, which has already been recognized in a detail of the bride of the large glass. Windows are, of course, ambivalent sexual symbols. Freud has noted that they stand for the openings of the body. In this sense, the theme of castration in this item is emphasized not only by the manifest significance of the widow, the guillotine, but also the Latin symbolism of the window, the sexual organ. The myth of the vagina dentata, which suggests the presence of teeth within the female reproductive organs, is often used in fiction and is said to have been created as a warning of the dangers of sex and to discourage men of the act of rape. This myth is also something that came up after I created my sculpture entitled L'Origine des Sens, as I have carefully been observing people's reactions towards this sculpture. But let me tell you first a little bit about this piece I'm referring to. According to me, in most cases, the work of art is a necessary physical substitute of an impalpable experience that only lives in the mind. In the case of my sculpture, L'Origine des Sens, my intention was to create a tactile object which would be the mediator between my promise of an experience and the reaction of the audience. The first impression of this sculpture might be one of intrigue, desire, but maybe even repulsion. A synesthetic experience comes into play. First, the eye feels the contrast between the cold plaster surface and the warm, dense fur, and then the hand sees what's inside the mysterious womb-like environment, only to discover a small stone, which was in fact the inspiration for the sculpture. From my observations, some people's reactions towards the sculpture was one of fear of the unknown, as if scared of the inside having teeth eager to chop their hands off. Others couldn't wait a second longer before putting their hand inside and go through with the experience. It will only be a question of minutes before we see what your reaction will be towards this interactive sculpture. But please, remember to be gentle. I chose the title L'Origine des Sens with an intention to pay tribute to Gustave Courbet's L'Origine du Monde. With the issue of gender in mind and the visual aesthetics of the fur I used echoing Courbet's delicately painted pubic hair, it seems unfeasible not to mention Oppenheim's surrealist fur cup. The title, Déjeuner en fourrure, is an ironic reference to Manet's 1863 masterpiece, Déjeuner sur l'herbe. Maybe it isn't such a coincidence then if the shape of my sculpture echoes the one of Manet's basket, which you can see in the foreground of the painting, towards the left-hand side. The visual openings here present are like the cut of my wall, remind us of a more intimate space, one that deals with femininity, fertility, and sexuality. Such themes of fertility and origin are rather recurrent in my practice and preoccupations, so much so that I dedicated a series on the notion of the beginning. The series, The Beginning of Everything, is dedicated to questioning the origin through the dilemma of the chicken or the egg, and actually wondering with great absurdity, well, what if the egg was the beginning of everything? In the 90s, Gabriel Orozco's work, First Was the Spitting, made by spitting toothpaste onto graph paper, was identified as an ironic comment about the idea of the beginning, where the organic spit symbolizes nothing less than the natural beginning of the world. Moreover, it wasn't a coincidence if Orozco used the grid as a support for his studies. As a matter of fact, American art critic Rosalind Krauss states that the grid's cold surface is the image of an absolute beginning. The grid is also seen as a strict anti-natural, flattened, geometricized, and ordered surface, waiting to be disrupted. Orozco added that the spit of his drawing was like an accident that broke the rules. This reminds me of something the artist Phoebe Unwin once told me. As an artist, your duty is to set yourself some rules in order to be able to break them. I believe this sums up very well my idea of the lines of the grid, rules to be broken. I count the Brazilian artist Adeline as one of the greatest examples of rule-breaking artists. Varejão creates a grid which he then distorts by letting artificial guts getting revealed to the world. The tension between strength and fragility is one of great interest to me. Here the notions of the strong and the fragile relate very much to the body, where the hard and cold quality of the tiling contrasts with the soft and warm quality of the meat-like parts. In her exquisite pieces, two worlds meet, the one of the interior and the one of the exterior. Through the process of her work, which involves painting on wood and polyurethane, the other essential act is the one of the opening. In 2000, Adriana Varejão decides to pay tribute to Fontana's 1965 slash painting, where it is clear that the cut is a simple act to leave a significant mark while enabling a release of tension as the grid gets disrupted. All in all, if this presentation I am about to conclude was enough of an opening act for tonight's show, I am now pleased to let Dr. Michael White, senior lecturer in the History of Art department here at the University of York, take over, in order to let him take us behind the scenes of the universe of the grid. Thank you very much.
Thank you.